All right, so on the first one, okay, do you guys agree that this right here is in slope-intercept form? Okay, everybody with me on that? So a quick review of that. Yesterday we went, not yesterday, whatever, last day we were here, sorry. We went over y equals mx plus b, right? M's the slope, b's the y-intercept. So what we're going to do to solve this, we're going to graph both of them, see where they cross. So this first one, -1, right there. 4 is in front of the x, so 4 is our slope. So it's up 4, right 1. Okay, we draw that line in there. That's the first one, right? So that would be graphing y equals 4x minus 1. Okay, now for this one, we got to put it in slope-intercept form. Now, it depends on which way you want to move things. I'm going to do this. Do you guys agree that's a negative y? If I move that over to this side, it would become positive y, wouldn't it? And I would have that. If that's a -5, what would it do when it went back to this side? It become positive, right? So when you simplify that, this is what you should have had. Y equals -4x plus 5. Yes, ma'am?
How did you get the y equals 4x minus 1?
Was that not on the paper? What's it say?
Y minus 4x equals 1.
Oh, so this was the minus and that was, thank you. We're not going to erase that, but if you're all watching on film, this is take 2. That's called I wrote it down wrong. So we're going to start that one over. For the future, somebody could have stopped me sooner. When you saw I wrote it down wrong, that would have been great. No, it's not completely wrong, but just everything about it is not right. But the spirit of it was correct. But we're going to have to erase it. We're going to have to erase it, yes, is what it really comes down to. Because now what's really going to change is, okay, that 1, I had it negative, didn't I? So really the only thing that's really going to change is when I move this over, I got y equals 4x plus 1, right? Instead of starting in -1, I'm going to start where now? Positive 1. So really that's the only thing that's going to change on the graph. What's that, bud? You can't erase. That's why we don't want to write in pen is bad in math. And I have like, you borrow a pencil every day. Well, that didn't work out as well as we'd liked. Why don't you go grab a pencil and let's try that. All right, so back here. So is everybody good now after I've confused this by writing down the problem wrong? Now we have it down correctly. Now we've moved it to y equals 4x plus 1, right? Now we start at 1. We go up 1, 2, 3, 4. We go over 1. Boom, now we draw it. So basically it's the same line. It's just up higher, crossing at 1. Then we'll go to this one. Did I write that one down right? Okay, good. All right, 50-50 here. So now I move that negative y over here. Did that make sense, everybody? And it became a positive. That -5 became a positive 5. So you should have got that. Now I'll go up here to 5. Put a point. That's a -4, so I'm going to go down 4 over 1. And we're going to draw that in there, okay? So is everybody good on those two graphs? Now, when you were putting down this point right here, when I graphed those two, what did you guys think? Where did you think it was at? Is it on whole numbers? Doesn't look like it, does it? It's like 0.5 and maybe 2.5, something like that. Okay? But what I want you guys to remember, okay, write a note out here. When you are solving a system, that is the answer. So what I mean by that is if you graph both equations, where they cross at that point, that is the x and y answer. So in this case, I'm kind of guesstimating, but you guys agree it'd be about 0.5 and 2.5. You could have put something different, but does everybody agree it's about there? Yes? All right, now let's go to this one. Now, this one we wanted to solve by graphing. Okay, neither one's in slope-intercept form, are they? So we got to take both of them and put them in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to take the 5x plus 2y equals 8 first. I'm going to subtract the 5x. I'm going to divide by 2. To get to there. So the first one up here, 5x plus 2y equals 8. If I put it in slope-intercept form, I'd have y equals negative 5 over 2x plus 4. And I should have asked this first. Did I write the problem down correctly? Good. That's a good start for me. We're on a roll now. Okay, so everybody good on that one? See where that came from? So when I go to graph it, it's going to be at 4, right? So I go here at 4. From that point, I go down 5 over 2. Draw that line in, right? So it looked like that. Then I'll take my other one, negative 10x plus 8y equals negative 16. Put it in slope-intercept form. I'm going to move the negative 10x over. And then I'm going to divide by 8. Okay, so does that make sense to everybody on that part? So I just had to get the y equals so I could graph it. So at negative 2 is where it crosses the y-axis. That's my b. I go up 5 over 4. Draw that. Okay, and once again, it's not hitting on a perfect answer, but it looks like, to me, it'd be 1.5 and 0 is the point where they would cross. So I just want to emphasize this one more time. If you're solving a system by graphing, no matter how you're solving the system, where they cross, that is the answer. Okay, is everybody good on that? Now, let me ask you a question. If I would have done this, see how those, you had to work that out and graph it, right? If I gave you a problem just like this, and I put this graph here, and I put this graph here, I'm going to cheat a little, make it work out like I wanted to, and I knew they crossed right there. If the question said, solve this system of equations, what would the answer be? The cross point, which would be 2, 1. Does that make sense to everybody? So even if they gave you the graph, that would be the answer. So that's by graphing. Now, what we're going to review today is we're basically taking those two over there, those same ones, and we're going to do substitution elimination. Now, anybody want to take a guess why this one we're doing substitution? Yep, there's already a y equals. So basically, out of these two, if you have a problem where one of them is already y equals, there's a great chance substitution will make it less steps. It's not always guaranteed, but most of the time. Okay? So in substitution, it's just like what the word says. You're going to substitute into the other equation. So do you guys agree that y equals 4x minus 1? Once again, what is it supposed to be? Oh, that's right, because it's the same as the other one, isn't it? You would think I could remember that, but I didn't. Okay, this time, though, I am going to erase. Okay, so I kind of lied, but it's close to that, isn't it? Could we do it easily? We could make that go over. We could have y equals 4x plus 1. How about that? Everybody good on that? Now we're going to take the 4x plus 1, plug it in for the y. because that's what y equals. So I got -5 equals. Now in this case here, do you guys agree that's a negative y? So when I plug that in, it has to go in parentheses. So that would be my first step right there after I plugged it in. So what I did there was a negative out in front of the y. So I put parentheses around the 4x plus 1 because that's what I was substituting in. And the reason that's important is because that is going to make not just the 4 be negative, okay, but the 1 also be negative. Now I'm going to, since these are on the same side, that's combined like terms, we're going to put those together. So -4x and -4x make -8x. I'd have to add 1 to both sides. So that would give me -4 equals -8x. Then I divide by -8. And my x would be 1/2, or if I want to put 0.5, either one. And it is positive because negative and negative will make it positive. So I know x is 1/2. So you can write it as 1/2 like this or like that. It wouldn't matter. Okay? Is there any chance you cannot move as much? Now, the good thing is I got this earpiece in, but everybody who would be watching this video would be hearing everything you're doing since you're like 2 feet away from the video. Okay. So you can watch this later and you can see me talking to you. All right, so you got 1/2 and we got 0.5. So now we got x equals 0.5. We're going to take that and do what with it? Plug it back in up here to find y. So since I already knew y equals 4x plus 1, I take that half, plug it in up here. Y equals 4 times 0.5 plus 1. Or 2 plus 1. And the y would be 3. Now, when you get that done, no, that is not our answer yet. We're going to write it down as a coordinate, as a point. So the answer we're going to put is 0.5 and 3. X is 0.5, y is 3. So that's the point. So if we looked over here, obviously, because I'm freestyling this one, but if we were more exact, that point really is crossing at this half and where? At 3. Okay, and if you use a straight edge on yours, you might have been able to tell that better. But that's where it's really crossing at is 1/2 and 3. Okay, so you might think of a question to ask about substitution. All right, let's do the elimination one. Now, on elimination, I know some of you, in the past at least, when people have come into geometry, they don't like elimination. But there's going to be, you're going to have to do it on the test. There's going to be one you have to do elimination. And there's a reason, because there are times if you do elimination and practice it some, it will make your life easier. Okay, this is an example of that. Now, elimination, I wrote down another word, cancel. That's what you're really looking to do. You are looking to make these two equations, so if I added them together, either the x or the y would cancel out. So let me ask you guys this question first. Like these two right here would be easy to work with, because if that's a -10, what could I multiply the 5 by to get a +10 so they would cancel? Let's make it 2. Now I'm going to make them opposite signs because I want to add them together and make them cancel. So if I multiply that top by 2, so let's do that right now. I got to multiply everything by 2. So I got to do 2 times 5, which is 10x. I got to do 2 times 2, which is 4y. And I've got to do 2 times 8. Okay? Now, does everybody see why we picked 2 in that case? Because that would be 10, and then 10 and -10 will cancel. So what happens now when you do that step, these cancel out, don't they? I add 4y and 8y, I get 12y. 16 and negative 16 is 0. I divide by 12. 0 divided by 12 is still 0. So in this case, my y would be 0. Does that make sense? Now, what do you think I got to do with that 0? Either one. Doesn't matter which one you pick. Okay? So if I do the top one, I take what I got for y, plug it in for y, divide by 5. I'm just going to leave it like that, but whatever 8 divided by 5 is. Okay, so once you get that down, just what I want to encourage you, when you get to practice and you get to elimination problem, make sure you practice that one. Ask questions, do some elimination. Don't just skip over those. Okay? All right, now let's turn the page. Now this is still, I think you covered this in algebra, but we're going to talk about it. Now, yesterday, do you guys remember what happened with parallel lines? Anybody? What do we know about their slopes? They're the same. Now, let me ask you a question. Do they ever cross? No. So think about this for a second. If I told you that the solution to any of those problems is where the two lines cross, if two lines are parallel, is there going to be an answer? No, it's going to be no solution. Now, for every other type of problem, if it's perpendicular, if whatever it is, they're going to cross, there's going to be an answer, isn't there? Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, now there's another possibility we didn't talk about yesterday. So we got lines that are parallel. That's going to be no solution. Does that make sense? We just did lines that crossed, right? That means I get a solution. There was one other type that you learned last year. Okay, and it was basically if I drew a line and then I had the same line on top of it, basically where are the lines crossing if they're on top of each other? Everywhere. So that's the infinite answer. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's look at one of these. So the first one we got, 5a. I got y equals x plus 2. And I got x minus y equals 3. Okay, did I write that down right? I think I did. I hold my paper further away and I can see the difference in the minus and the equal this time. So that's already in slope-intercept form, right? What could I do to this one to make it be slope-intercept form? Could you make the x go on the other side and we'd have a negative x, right? Now, since that's a negative y, these two right here are going to change signs. It's like I'm dividing by negative 1. That's what I'm basically doing. That's what I am doing, actually, would be the right answer. So I would get that. Y equals x minus 3. Okay, so on these two right here, when we graph them, are they going to cross? No. Basically, they're going to look like this. I've got one that's at 2, but it's going up 1 over 1, right? Like that. The other one's crossing down here at minus 3, but they have the same slope. So they're never crossing. Let's write down no solution. Okay, everybody good with that concept? So basically, when lines are parallel, there's going to be no solution. Okay, the other thing that can happen is like on B, we got y equals negative 5x plus 6, right? Then we've got 10x plus 2y equals 12. Does So we got to take the bottom one and put it in slope-intercept form. So we move the 10x over, right? So we got 2y equals negative 10x plus 12. We divide by 2. So we should end up with this right here, which is exactly the same as this one, right? So if they're the same line on top of each other, that's called infinite. Okay, because that means there's multiple solutions because they're on top of each other. Okay, so I want to do this before we try these bottom 3 problems. Okay, we got 3 choices: parallel, perpendicular, coinciding, or neither, right? So let me ask you a question. What's the 2 key things for them to be parallel? Slope has to be same. So let's write that down. So if they're parallel, they'll have the same slope. But what is going to be different? The b, the y-intercept. So b is different. Does that make sense, everybody? Now, the reason I'm emphasizing that is because the other word that we probably don't use very often that I want to like put next to it, see the word coinciding? That means basically this. If they're coinciding, that means they're on top of each other. That means they're the same line. In that case, they're still going to have the same slope, aren't they? But they're also going to have the same what? Yep, the same slope and the same y-intercept, or the same b. Does that make sense? So when they're if you see their slopes are the same, there's 2 things that can happen. They can be parallel, or if they have the same y-intercept, they can be the same line. Now on perpendicular, okay, let's write this down too so we review this. There's only one thing you have to know for them to be perpendicular. What does that have to be about the slopes? They got to be opposite reciprocals. So they got to be opposite signs and flipped. So to be perpendicular, the slope has to be opposite reciprocal. Does it matter what the b is? No, because even if it's the same, they're still perpendicular. Does that make sense, everybody? And then I don't want to say obviously, but obviously if it's neither of these, that means the slope and the y-intercept, they're just different. Doesn't fit into one of these things. Okay? So let's look at A. If we wanted to look at this one, negative 4x plus y equals 9, and we have 4x minus y equals 1. What should we do to both of those to see which one it fits? Put it in what form? Yeah, y-intercept. So we want to take both of them, put them in slope-intercept. So you guys agree this one would become y equals 4x plus 9? Now this one, that negative can confuse you. Probably here's how the best way to think of it. If you move the 4x over, you have this. Now divide by negative 1. So you have that. So the top one becomes y equals 4x plus 9. Bottom one becomes y equals 4x minus 1. Slopes are the same. Y-intercepts are different, so this one is parallel. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, now we look at the next one, B. We got 8x plus y equals negative 4. And we got 16x plus 2y equals negative 8. Okay, so the top one's easy to move into slope-intercept. You just got to move the 8x over. So y equals negative 8x minus 4. Does everybody see why the 8 became negative? This one, I got to move the 16x over first. Then I divide by 2. And they are the exact same, which means that is coinciding. Another way to say it. So we got two lines that are on top of each other. And probably if you're taking a guess, this last one's either going to be perpendicular or neither, isn't it? Let's find out. Okay, so we got 3y plus 15 equals 2x, right? Negative 3x minus 2y equals 10. Okay, so on the top one, I'm going to take 3y, move the 15 over. And then I'm going to divide by 3. So I get this. Then I'm going to work with this one. Okay, so our two equations you should end up with once you put them in slope-intercept form are y equals 2/3 x minus 5, y equals negative 3 over 2x minus 5. So look at their slopes. 2 over 3, negative 3 over 2. Are they opposite reciprocals? Yes. Now, their b's are the same. Does that matter? Does not matter for perpendicular. So this one would be perpendicular. Okay, is everybody good on that? All right, so let's work on practice, please. And once again, that quiz on Tuesday will be this and the first two lessons.